Okay, let's go. Let's go upstairs. That's it. Oh, you're taking your last bit. Okay.
Well, it looks like we have 57 participants so far. Most of the senators, I think, have shown up. Colleen, do you think we're ready to begin?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay. Well, we are ready to call this meeting to order. So I'm going to call the December meeting of the Faculty Senate to order, and we will begin with the roll call. Colleen?
Okay. Barber?
Here.
Barrett?
Here.
Boumier?
Here.
Branyan? All right, I saw you. Brandenburg?
Here. Branyan's here. Sorry.
Yeah, I saw you. So Jamie, that's you too?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Brown? Carmack?
Here.
Chambliss?
Here.
Chong?
Here.
Corley?
Here.
Deweese?
Here.
Edelman?
Here.
Elman?
Here.
Urban? Evans?
Here.
Fuentes?
Here.
Galt? Gordon?
Here.
Hunt for Graphius?
Here.
Green?
Here.
Hadley? Hester?
Here.
Ivory?
Here.
Harapasmino?
Here.
Pelleton?
Here.
Khan? Kimbrell?
Here.
Nice?
Here.
Sungwoo Lee?
Here.
Sung Lee?
Yeah, here.
McKinnon?
Here.
Mason?
Here.
Mitchell?
Here.
McClenny?
Here.
McLean?
Here.
Nickel?
Here.
Nori?
Here.
Olivieri?
Here.
Hazani?
Here.
Pinko? Richter?
Here.
Scullin? Self?
Here.
Scott Meyer?
Here.
Shoemake?
Here.
McCandless for Snipes?
Here.
Swift?
Here.
Sykes?
Here.
Talbot?
Here.
Tawidi?
Here.
Way?
Here.
Williams?
Here.
Wofford? Yoder?
Here.
Cool, got it.
Very good. Thank you, Colleen. As I mentioned in an email to the faculty senators this week, most of the senior leadership team at the university is at a SAC-COC conference. And so our senior leaders were unable to attend today's faculty senate meeting. So we will go ahead straight into the committee reports, and we'll begin with the UPC, which at this time of year, as we all know, has a lot of business. So quite a number of votes on new course proposals. Normally, Karen Graphius would present this information. I think she's represented by proxy today. Who is presenting for Karen?
Hi, Dan. It's me, Rosemary. I'm gonna.
Oh, okay, Rosemary. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think I was informed of that in an email, and neglected to write it down, but thank you, Rosemary. So we'll begin with the UPC reports. So you can proceed.
Thank you. So the first item we are going to vote on is a request for a new program from the philosophy program. This is a standalone certificate in ethics. This focuses on the philosophical study of ethics and is open to students in any discipline.
Okay, with all of the UPC business, because there's quite a lot of it, I will proceed straight into a vote unless someone flags me with by raising your hand or sending a message in the chat. Seeing no hands raised, we'll proceed to a vote on this issue. Colleen, you can run the poll. And it looks like this passes. Very good. Rosemary?
Great, thank you. We're going to take items B and C as a block. These are two new courses that will both contribute to the ethics certificate program, and these respond to student demand for more coursework in applied ethical issues.
Very good. We'll proceed to a vote on this. And it looks like that passes as well. Very good. Rosemary?
Great. Okay. The next three items we will take as a block, three revisions to the philosophy programs, the three different philosophy tracks. There are two parts of these revisions. So the first part is specific to these philosophy programs, and that is basically to add those two new courses that were just approved to the programs for the philosophy majors. The second part of this revision also applies to all the other BA programs that you see listed, and we'll vote on those as a block in a moment. But what these changes represent for all of the BA programs is a change in the language requirement. So students now will have a choice of either taking, this is in the core F area, of either taking two language courses in sequence. So this would be 2001 and 2002 of a particular language other than English, or they now have the option to take 2001 plus a new 2000 level FORL course. And so the purpose of this is just to create a little bit more flexibility for students in the BA track, because this other FORL course can be taken concurrently with another foreign language course. So it just helps to kind of condense that requirement and make progress to graduation more efficient. So with the first block that we're going to take, just D through F, the philosophy programs, we're voting on both that change regarding the foreign language requirement and then the addition of the new courses. And then we'll take all the other BA programs as a block, and that will be just the new option for foreign language.
Very good. And of course, as most of you probably remember, earlier this fall, we voted as a Senate to approve the new foreign language possibility for BA programs. And now that of course is being applied. So seeing no comments on this, I think we're ready for a vote for those three philosophy courses. Very good. It looks like it passed. And of course, I should have said philosophy modifications, not courses, but thank you. So now back to you, Rosemary.
Thanks. And so now we'll take the block of all the other BA programs all the way down to the theater BA on your agenda. And this is again, just for the changes regarding the foreign language requirement.
Very good. We're ready for a vote, I think. And that passes. Okay. Now I think it's theater, right, Rosemary?
Correct. So this is a request to delete the course theater 4293, which is not required for the major. And it's going to replace that with an elective option for students within the BFA program there.
Okay. We'll launch the vote on that. And that passes as well. It looks like unanimously, 48-0. Back to you, Rosemary.
Great. So our next item is FORL 2100, Language and Identity. This is going to be one of the 3 FORL courses. There 2 already exist. This will add a 3rd option from which BA students could choose when completing that foreign language requirement in core area F.
Okay, we'll launch the vote on FORL. And that passes as well. Rosemary?
Okay, our next item is to delete a track. The track is the Mathematics You Teach Secondary Education track. This program is no longer supported by the College of Education. It's been replaced by the 5.1, 5+1 MAT program. And so that's why they're deleting this particular track.
Okay, very good. We'll launch the vote. And that passes. Rosemary?
Okay, so our next block of courses, these are new courses in chemistry. These are new courses that are designed to make chemistry courses more available to non-science majors, as well as students majoring in other sciences.
Okay, so we'll vote on new chemistry courses. I think we're ready for the poll.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I didn't speak to the other 2 courses there at the bottom, the 4908 lab and the 4909 lab, but those are being added to replace an existing course, which is 4910 lab, in order to provide students with a bit more time working on their capstone project. So this will actually be for items A through F. My apologies.
Okay, that sounds good. And this passes, it appears unanimously. So I think we have more chemistry proposals to vote on, right?
That's right. So we're now on item G, which is the modification to the chemistry minor. This lowers the number of hours in the minor to 15. It's currently 23 credit hours. And then it also adds those new courses we just approved as electives for the minor.
Oh, crap.
Okay, I think we're ready for the poll.
We're actually not ready for the poll because
okay, good, because of item G, is that the issue?
Yeah, it's item G. So can we move to the chem non-ACS track modifications, and then I'll make the poll for the while she's going through that, I can add the minor to the non-ACS track modification, and we can vote on both of them at the same time.
Sounds great.
Oh, okay, so you just want us to move down to item K then,
geography. Yeah, just move down to so there's a block of 3 non-ACS chemistry.
Yes.
Yeah, so go ahead and move into that one. And while Rosemary's presenting that, I can adjust to add this item to that vote.
Okay,
oh, I got you.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, I figured out how to
H through
do
J,
that.
we'll talk about H through J and then vote on G through J, I guess.
We'll do everything at once. You'll see. It'll be awesome.
Thanks, Colleen. Okay, so H through J, these modifications basically reflect the new courses approved above 4908L and 4909L, because those changes will add 1 more credit hour to the curriculum. It also requests to allow Chem 4712 in place of Chem 4711. So just a change in the major requirements. There's also a request to remove one of the sentences from the catalog description, which states that biochemistry is strongly recommended, which is inconsistent with the actual curriculum that requires biochemistry. So just deleting that sentence.
Okay. Well, do we have the poll ready, Colleen?
I think so. If the stars
Okay.
align, this is going to work.
Okay.
So
Voting
let's
on items
see what
G
happens.
through J.
Yeah, so when I launch the poll, you'll actually see 2 votes. Oh, they're there. This is so cool. Oh my God, it's working. It's sad that I'm so into this right now, but this is really cool. This is gonna make our lives so much easier.
Poll where people can vote on 2 items at once.
Yay. All right, both passed.
Okay, I think yes, looks like it. Very good. Okay, I think we're ready for
That is so cool.
geography.
All right, thanks, Colleen. Our next item is item K, the Geography BS. This is a revision of the program, which changes the modality of several courses, thus making the GIS concentration in particular a majority online program.
Very good. I think we're ready for a vote on that. And that passes.
Okay. Item L is a addition of a new course, The Age of Dinosaurs. This is being proposed as a core course in area D1, and it's aimed at non-science majors.
All right.
Okay, I think we're ready for a vote.
I really want to take that class. All right, nothing's happening. Can you see it?
I got
can
like
see
an
the
error
poll.
message when I tried to vote.
Okay. Let me see. Let me see if I can do it.
Yeah, it says polling not started.
All right, let me see if I can relaunch it. There we go.
Okay.
See, I bragged about the other thing, and so that happened.
Well, at least it's working now, and it appears that it has unanimous approval. I think people liked the course. Okay, Rosemary, I think we're now on COE, is that correct?
Yes, it is. And we are going to take all the items under number 1, so A through F. We're going to take those as a block. All of these items are a response to a request from UWG that we have at least one teacher prep program that is just a 120 credit hour curriculum. And so these revisions are reducing the number of credit hours to bring this program to a 120 credit hour course. So this involves lowering the credit hours for several courses listed there. And then, of course, changing the program as a whole to reflect that lower course credit hour requirement.
Very good. I think we're ready to hold the vote.
Yeah, so this is going to be another one of those double votes because when Karen sent them over for the block, I wasn't sure if we could block them all together. So that's when I figured out you could do this thing. So you'll see the 2 separate votes inside the 1 vote.
Okay.
Looks like, oh,
Yeah, it looks like both passed.
Yep.
Very good. Okay, Rosemary.
Okay, so moving on to item 2A, the course MEDT 2501 is a new course that is being proposed to replace the course EDUC 2110 in Area F. This course is intended to support future educators' understandings of digital literacy, technology, and media.
Okay, I think we're ready for the vote. And and maybe that's delayed.
Yeah, it's another one too. Let me relaunch this one and see. I think maybe we're doing too much too fast. There we go.
Looks like it's working now. And I think it passes.
Yep. Unanimous.
Okay. Rosemary, I think we have more from the COE.
Yes. Okay. And so this might be a double vote too. I'm not sure, Colleen.
I didn't
A and B.
set it up as one.
Okay.
Let me see what I
So-
did.
Okay. Well, I'll describe them and then you can tell us about the vote. But so these two proposals, A and B, go together. These are from the LSC department, and they are proposing to reactivate their BSED in special education, specifically the general concentration track, and then to convert both that track and the adapted concentration track to 100% online delivery. And so then the course revision for SPED 3750 is changing the course description to reflect that observations will be done in a virtual format. And it's also requesting to change from pass-fail grading to a letter grade for that course.
Very good. These may be two separate votes, right, Colleen? I think that's
Yeah, I
the way.
just fixed it though, where you could vote on them at the same time, just like we did with the last one.
Okay,
So it's
that
two
sounds good.
separate votes and one poll. Now that I figured out how to do that, our life is so much easier.
Okay. Well, let's hold the vote.
All right. Yep. All right.
And both of these pass.
Okay.
Rosemary?
Next up, we have a revision request for the BS in Mass Communications. And this involves changing the name, first of all, of a concentration from digital media and telecommunication to digital media and entertainment, just kind of matching more up with the current industry. And similarly, changing the name of the program Convergence Journalism to simply journalism. And these are both just to reflect current terminology in the discipline.
Okay. That sounds good.
So which one is this? Just the MassCom BS?
That's right.
Okay, got it. All right, I'm gonna launch.
And that passes.
Okay. So next up is a request for a new course, COM 4456, Digital Content Creation. This is going to be a new elective for students in the School of Communication, Film, and Media, and it cuts across all of the program concentrations within that program.
Okay, very good. So let's vote on this new course proposal. And that passes.
Okay. Next up, we're moving on to Richards College of Business and the Department of Marketing and Real Estate. And we are going to take the first two items there as a block. These are two new embedded certificates. They do not involve the addition of any new courses. And the hours for both of these certificates will count toward state licensing exam requirements.
Okay. Well, let's vote on the proposals from our COB, from our code. Passes. So Rosemary?
Okay, next up is a proposal to add a new course, Data 1501, Introduction to Data Science. Basically, the university and the USG system are developing a statistics pathway for students, particularly from majors where they might benefit more from a statistics pathway instead of a traditional college algebra sequence. So this course would serve as the Area D course for students who take Math 1401 in Area A2.
Okay, very good. So we'll vote on data 1501. And that passes.
Okay, we've
And
made it to our
last-
final item.
proposal
Yep. And this is a request to add a new course topic for XIDS 2300, and the topic is Pirates of the Caribbean.
And it's
Very
going to be
good.
awesome.
And yes, you would know. Okay, let's vote on this new course. Okay, well, a couple people dared to vote against the executive secretary, but it still passes by overwhelming margins. So thank you, Rosemary. I know it was quite a marathon. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
So now we'll go to Graduate Programs Committee, and Dana Neese will present a similar round, maybe not quite as long, but a few proposals from the GPC.
Yes, the first proposal we have up is from the College of Education, the Department of Literacy and Special Education, and it's for a modification of the Master of Arts in Teaching, Special Education, Adaptive, and General Curriculum. The one major change here is the course number Special Education SPED 7732 was removed from the concentration and from the Adaptive Curriculum concentration and replaced by SPED 7722.
Okay, very good. Well, I think we are ready for the vote. And that passes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next one is from the Richards College of Business. It's the Department of Accounting and Finance. It's program revision for the Master of Professional Accountancy and the Master of Business Administration dual degree program. A similar proposal was put forth at the last meeting. This one just really removes 2 of the 5,000 level courses and replaces it with an updated Accounting for Sustainability course, which was approved at the last Faculty Senate meeting in November. So yes, this has just had the updated program sheet.
Very good. I think we're ready for the vote. And that passes. And I think you have a couple information items for us, but that concludes this marathon run of new curriculum proposals, I think.
Yes.
But we'll go to the information items.
Yeah, the 2 information items, there's a subcommittee on GPC that's working on the graduate faculty status policy. This was brought to our attention by Dr. Ziegler, who noted that we were out of SACS compliance. So we have a subcommittee working on that, and we should be able to present drafts of it within the new year to bring forward. And also Patrick Hadley has agreed to serve as chair of the Graduate Programs Committee for the 2022-2023 academic year.
Well, very good. Appreciate Patrick's willingness to serve. It's not an easy job chairing this committee. And I'm very glad to hear about the subcommittee working on this. We'll look forward to hearing more in the spring. So thank you, Dana. And now we'll go to Academic Policies Committee, APC, and Jennifer has an information item for us.
Yes, so you may recall earlier in the year, we brought the idea that we were going to have designations for high impact practices for some of our courses. This is the first high impact practice that has made it through APC undergraduate research. It was voted on and passed. So this document spells out the criteria that will be used to evaluate courses. That process for evaluating and naming the courses, I believe it will have to go through UPC, but we're still working out those details. But the criteria are here so faculty can start looking at them and considering submitting their courses for this designation.
Any questions from anyone on this new stage of the HIPS committee's work and NAPC's committee work. We know, of course, that we've been talking about this all academic year, started in September. Sure, we'll be hearing more updates as we go along. Shelley.
Where will this be located so faculty can access it?
Right now, it's located just in the Faculty Senate agenda and minutes. We're going to have to figure out a place to keep it. I don't know if that's APC will designate that, or if the HIPS committee will designate that. That's something to consider.
Yeah, that it would seem to be, I guess it would seem to me that we need to move it to a more prominent place than just
accessible.
APC.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
yeah, maybe that could be a discussion item to move it into some part of academic affairs.
Dan, this is David Newton.
Okay, David.
Yes.
And thank you all for considering the criteria proposal. We will have a permanent place for it. We are developing a website that'll be off the Provost Office website for high impact practices, and all of these documents and the criteria and processes will be housed there. And we will begin in January rolling out communication to departments, colleges, and programs, discussing this process and inviting folks to apply as they're interested in applying for these attributes.
Good. Thank you, David. I'm very glad to hear that. So that answers that question. Any other questions or comments before we move on to the next agenda item? Seeing none, thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. And Yvonne, I know you have a presentation from Elizabeth Smith. Maybe you could introduce that on behalf of the FITC, and then we can move forward with the presentation.
Yvonne said that her bandwidth is low right now, so she asked that we introduce Elizabeth Smith instead.
Okay.
I'm going to link to that really quickly, and I see Shelley has her hand raised.
That may be from the last question. Yeah.
It was, sorry.
Okay. Well, you can pull up the presentation, and I guess I'll just briefly introduce what we're going to see. My understanding, and I guess, Yvonne, you can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that last month, the FITC, as part of its work, that is the Facilities and Information Technology Committee, as part of its work in trying to develop good relationships with the various facilities on campus and various facilities and auxiliaries on campus, and trying to get a sense of what faculty could do to better communicate their needs to those entities, and what those entities could perhaps do to better serve the needs of faculty in developing these useful partnerships. The committee heard a report from Elizabeth Smith from the campus bookstore, and it was so informative that Yvonne said that she would like the Faculty Senate as a whole to hear the presentation, and I certainly agreed with that. I think that we could all benefit from knowing more about how the campus bookstore operates, what we can do to facilitate the process in placing our textbook orders, and what the particular needs of students are as they select textbooks. So we'll hear this short presentation, and then of course open it up for any questions or comments that any of you may have regarding the work of the campus bookstore. Elizabeth, thank you for agreeing to speak to us today.
Elizabeth, if you'd like, you can actually share your presentation and click through it, or you can direct me to scroll through.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I can share it right quick.
Okay.
All right. Can everybody see that okay?
Looks good.
All right. So thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be here and get to share with you a little bit about what we're doing. The course materials are such a critical part of our students' success, and the bookstore is a component of that. And we recognize that with market challenges and economies of scale, we cannot source course materials as affordably as some of our national retailers if we're buying 30 of a unit and they're buying 30,000. And that creates some equity issues for our students. As the bookstore, we've been trying to kind of work through these problems and how can we find solutions to help bridge this gap and provide more affordable, more accessible course materials. And what we found in exploring that is that the problem is much bigger than we actually imagined initially. And we needed a much bigger team looking at it. And so that's where the course material collaborative team came from. We have representatives from all the different academic colleges getting together to brainstorm and talk through solutions and talk through options so that we're all working together instead of having different initiatives in different pockets. We're collaborating with the goal of bringing accessible and affordable course materials to our students. And this is not a long presentation. This is actually a single information sheet that we will send out afterwards. And we would love to have this dispersed to as many people as possible, because one thing that we found through that course material collaborative is that there's a lack of understanding across the board about what these different efforts are doing and what the impact is on our students and what's available to faculty. So just to briefly go over our some national survey data that we collected as part of this is that the lack of accessibility of course materials led to about 59% of students reporting that they skipped materials and that impacted their class performance. 41% of those who skipped materials considered dropping out of school, and 21% reported not obtaining some of their course materials for class. That's a huge, 1 out of 5 students are saying that they're skipping course materials on some level. So we pulled a lot of data. The first charge was to find out where we are. And so we pulled a lot of data together and we found that we're actually better than I think we all individually expected, in that 56% of our courses participate in some sort of affordability initiative that we're aware of, whether that is day one access or a low cost book or a no cost book. And we recognize that helping combine these options gives us more opportunities for our faculty to know what's available to them, because OER is not going to work for every class. Low cost is not going to work for every class. Day one access is not going to work for every class. And so if we can collaborate and combine all those efforts, we can really make a meaningful impact on the 44% of our courses remaining that at least from a reported standpoint are not participating in one of these 3 initiatives. So explaining a little bit about what those are, that's where this infographic was another charge for our group. We said, how do we get this information out in a consolidated format? And a big piece was putting this together so that it's easy to read. I'd love any feedback that you all have, because this is something that we'd like to disseminate across our campus to get that information in the hands of all of our faculty. So consolidating all of the affordable, accessible initiatives that we have on here. The first, of course, is OER. That is the most accessible and the most affordable. Current grant-funded OER usage at UWG saves our students $755,000 on an annual basis. And that's just grant funded. We know that there are faculty out there that are using OER that we may not be aware of, that are not calculated into this cost savings. This information came from Dr. Dutt and CJ Ivory. I appreciate pulling all this together so that we also have contact information in here, so faculty, especially new faculty, know where to go. Okay, we know first option, OER. That's the most accessible, the most affordable. And where can they go to get it? And that's their subject librarian. Day one access is a newer program. We launched it last year. We're currently just starting this fall, was the start of our 2nd year of the program. And in its first year, Day One Access saved students $482,000. And what that is we're taking courses that use digital content and we're contracting with the publishers to provide the lowest option available. It's automatically loaded into the student's CourseDen, so they don't have to go buy an access code from somewhere or purchase it from the bookstore. It's automatically loaded into CourseDen on their first day of class. So the student gets in, they have access to it, and then the charge for that is automatically billed onto their student account. They have options throughout the first several weeks of class to opt out of that access if they want to, but it is, in order for a course to be in this program, it has to be the lowest cost available. So our publishers are much more willing to discount the materials below what they sell direct to student currently. So right now we have a situation where a publisher can sell direct to student for one rate. They charge the bookstore the same rate as the direct to student. So then as soon as we add any administrative cost to that, now we're more expensive, which means that our students who need financial aid, who need to go through the bookstore to purchase their course materials, are paying more than our students who already have the financial assets with a credit card to purchase. It's widening that economic gap for our students. So by going through this program, we leverage direct to student. We actually get below the direct to student cost, but because the charge is added to the student bill, the student who has the credit card can pay with their credit card. The student who needs financial aid can pay with financial aid. And we've created an equitable situation with 100% accessibility for our students, and they can't purchase it anywhere less expensive than they can through this program. If they opt out and they want to purchase it somewhere else, they can, but they will be paying more. And that publishers want to be in this program. We want them in this program. And it's one of our few opportunities that we have to win-win-win. So the students don't have to worry about where to get their materials. The students pay the least amount. The publishers get the sell-through that they're looking for, but they charge us less. So the students are saving money, and our faculty can spend less time trying to help the students figure out where to purchase it or how to get into it, or their access code's not working or their access codes decline. They can spend less time the first couple of weeks working through access issues and more time actually focusing on the learning content that they're supposed to be getting in that class and orienting them to the material. One piece of data that I found really interesting in our national survey of students that's done by our national association, with about 12,000 students responding, was when they sent it out and said, what is meaningful for you in Day One Access programs? We were expecting them to say low cost. That's what we want. It's the lowest cost, and so we love it. But if you look at the information here, this really gives us a clue into what students are thinking and what their concerns are. I know I have all the materials and the correct editions. I have the convenience of not having to shop for materials. I had materials on the first day of class, and then fourth, the materials cost less. So the top 3 reasons why students like Day One Access is because it alleviates those stress. They feel prepared. They're confident going in to the first day of class. And that survey data really highlighted to me, cost is important. And that's something that we want to protect in this program, is lowest cost. But accessibility is so important, and feeling prepared is so important to these students. So that's a major component of this program. Then our third option is low cost materials. So low cost, when we were talking with our group, there was a lot of confusion about where does low cost come from. We know that it shows up in Banner, but we don't know where that information comes from or how it's calculated. So we wanted to clearly lay this out for all faculty. This is what it looks like to the student if they go into BandWeb to sign up for a class, and it's a low cost option. It shows up under an attribute. The total cost of all materials for the class needs to be $40 or less to be classified as a low cost. So if you have a class with 5 books and they're each $10, that doesn't constitute a low cost class. That information is sent to the registrar from the bookstore based on the adoption information we receive each month. So we're sending out each month low cost information for spring. And then in the middle of spring, we'll start sending them low cost information for summer and fall. The reason we use the bookstore information is we want to make sure that we're being as transparent as possible for our students, because of those pricing differences from all the different retailers. We want to make sure our students who need to use the bookstore, the students that are going to be most concerned about the low cost of the course materials, are going to be the ones who need to use their financial aid. So we don't want to, if a course material is $39 direct to student with a credit card, but it's $55 or $60 through the bookstore because of those pricing models and economies of scale, we don't want a student signing up for this and then going to the bookstore needing to use their financial aid and finding out that it's $65 instead of $39 or $40. That's why we use that information, and it's standard across the board. And then Dr. Dutt was put together our Affordable Learning Georgia information to show us, going back to that OER and grant funding for low cost and no cost materials, and where we stand as an institution, and then how much money that we're currently receiving, how much grant funding we're currently receiving for each of the different areas and the different colleges, just to show we are participating in that and we're having a big impact. We are still not all the way up at the top of the Georgia State, UGA, Kennesaw, and so we have room for growth, and we really want to all collectively do anything that we can to help promote these programs as well, the ALG grant programs. And I think through all of this, our goal is to break down some of those challenges we've had in the past of OER being in competition with the bookstore or low cost. We really want to embrace that our goal, all of our goals, the library, the faculty, the bookstore, UWG Online, all the people that are involved in this, all of our goals is to bring accessible, affordable course materials to our students. So if we could get 100% on OER, that's the ideal situation. We're not going to get there anytime soon. So we have these other gaps that we can, these other programs that we can use to fill that gap. And I know I'm trying to be respectful of everybody's time. I know you have a long agenda, and that's a lot of data to push on you. I am open to questions for anybody that has any questions about any of this.
Yeah, this was very helpful, Elizabeth. Thank you. We do have some questions. I think one that came in through the chat is that I guess a point of clarification about who labels courses as low cost or no cost. We've traditionally assumed as faculty that we report that ourselves through administrative assistants who submit courses to Banner, and that they're then labeled as low cost or no cost in Banner. So the question is, so administrative support who submit courses to Banner are not responsible for labeling courses as low cost or no cost. So I think there's a request for some clarification there. Can you provide some answers to that?
Absolutely. Yeah, so the administrative support submit the adoptions to the store. And they may put, if that information is in there that they're wanting to have this listed as low cost or no cost, we work to try and provide feedback on whether or not that's actually going to be labeled no cost or low cost. But it is the bookstore data, the course material data that's in the bookstore for each of the adoption information for each class that is labeled as no cost or low cost, and then submitted to the registrar's office to upload. And the reason for that was specifically because, for example, if you go to Amazon and you're looking for the course material that you adopt and it says it's available used for $15 on the marketplace, you're going to adopt that believing that it's a low cost book for the student. If that adoption is sent to the bookstore and at that time we're not able to acquire the books in a way that would make it low cost, if we have to get them new because the marketplace has changed and there's not used available or something along those lines, and the price goes above that low cost price, then we run into an issue where a student signed up for a class believing that it was low cost and they show up with their financial aid at the bookstore and it's not actually low cost, it's actually over the $40 amount. So to clean up all of those communication pieces, we use the new cost at the bookstore because that's what we know for sure we can get the materials at for the student. So we know anything that's labeled as low cost in BandWeb, we know that we can get for all students at low cost, as opposed to, and it might be low, like, so there might be a class that's listed not as low cost where it's $80 and a student is able to source it used from peer sourcing from Amazon for less than $40. And that's fantastic. But we just want to make sure when that student signs up for class, if it says $40 or under, we want to make sure that when they come into the store needing to use their financial aid, because that's their only method of payment, that it is going to be $40 or less. And they don't end up with sticker shock if something happened where it's not able to be sourced for that. Does that make sense? And I'm absolutely, any clarification points or anything like that I can do on that. I absolutely want to help make sure we have that conversation.
Yeah, that was helpful. And I think Shelley may have a follow-up question. Shelley?
I do, because that was my question. Thanks, Elizabeth. This is great. I think one of the challenges we've come across is that the low cost, no cost designation sometimes doesn't get there by the time the students are registering. And so we have faculty asking the administrative support folks why it's not there. The administrative support folks are like, I didn't know that I was supposed to put it in. And then it becomes sort of a complication. Is there anything we can do to help with the timeline of getting those labels in banners so that the students can see them?
Absolutely. It's difficult because it has to do with when the course adoptions are submitted. And that's already a challenging benchmark because adoptions for a future semester are already expected fairly early, to a point where you may not have been able to assess the learning outcomes from the adoption that you're currently using before you decide to use it for the next semester, and you're already being asked to submit for the next semester. So the earlier the adoptions go in, that's when it gets submitted. We start doing it, so it's once a month beginning. So for fall, we will start submitting in April 1st, I think is our first. It might be March 1st. I know for sure it's March 1st for summer. And then I think it's April 1st for fall, where we start sending the reports to the registrar on the 1st of every month with adoptions. Now, to your point, that may be something that's what we've been doing, but maybe we need to be doing that on, at least as we get closer for sure, but maybe we need to be doing it on a weekly or bi-weekly basis so that as adoptions are coming in, we're updating that information more frequently rather than just once a month submitting the report with the new adoptions that we've received. So I think I'm going to make a note right now that we need to increase the frequency of that, because if we send it out on the 1st and you send your adoption in on the 2nd, it's not going to show up on the no cost, low cost list until the 1st of the next month. And we need to clean up that gap.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Any other questions for Elizabeth? Seeing none, thank you. That was a very informative presentation. I'm really glad you were able to present this to the Faculty Summit. I learned a lot from it, and I'm sure others did too. So thank you, Elizabeth.
Excellent. Thank you all very much. And we will be getting this out to everybody. I'll make sure that we get this out to everybody here. And so we can start, like I said, collaborating to get all of our classes into one of these 3 initiatives for our students. I really appreciate the time here. And if anybody has any additional questions, I'm open and happy to work through that. We have the collaborative team that we have working on course material problems across campus has been phenomenal. Everybody's working together to take care of the students. So it's really rewarding. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I think we have a very brief announcement from Kathy Barrett. Kathy, the floor is yours.
I may need to come back.
Kathy. I'm
on mute, sorry.
Okay.
I'm off mute. I always do that. So the next chairman for the Student Affairs and Intercollegiate Activity is going to be Georgiana DeWeese. I greatly appreciate that she stepped up to that.
Yes, thank you, Georgina. We really appreciate that. And we'll look forward to your leadership next year on that committee. So now we transition to another presentation from this time from Budget Committee Chair Lori Kemble. Lori?
Hey, everybody. I'm going to keep my camera off because I had to attempt to find a quiet place, and I apologize for any noise in the background. There is heavy machinery right outside my window. So I don't really have a presentation, as really it's just an update. We had an informative committee meeting where John Haven, Vice President Haven, came to give us an update, and we learned a few things on the committee that we wanted to share with the entire Senate. And if anybody wants a copy of our draft minutes, I'd be happy to send those, and everything I'm going to cover is in those. And of course, those will be published later on when they're approved. So just again, I'm going to go through some of the items that he talked about. So our budget deficit this year is being backfilled by the CARES Act allocation. And that allocation is approximately $16 million. So it's a pretty hefty amount. And those budget deficits, as we all know, were created by the enrollment decline that was exacerbated even more by the pandemic. So the administration has also expressed a goal of prepaying expenses for next year, for FY23, out of this year's budget when possible. And the idea there is to really maximize that CARES Act allocation that is one-time only money, to buy down some of the deficit that we know is coming for next year. Speaking of next year, the enrollment projection for 22-23 academic year is slightly lower than it is for 21-22. And the reason for that is not necessarily that we expect that the incoming freshman class will be smaller, but it's these smaller classes from this year and last year working their way through the system. So even if we have a larger incoming freshman class, it will take a while to grow that enrollment back, which of course is the goal for administrators as well as all the faculty. Another thing that he talked about, the issues not related to academic affairs that are under review, PPVs, to really increase our financial viability, because when we're thinking about the budget, while academic affairs impacts us as faculty the most, all of the pieces, the budget is a system, right? And we can't really take it in silos, and all of the issues really do impact the entire bottom line. So there are some creative ideas that Vice President Haven and his people are working on. One of them is the potential for faculty housing on campus. And so he described taking a tour through the dorms to look for the most ideal one, and then potentially again offering housing for their idea was new faculty members who are maybe new PhDs, right, coming to Carrollton for the first time. And it might be a good way to fill some dorm rooms if they spiff them up a little bit and make them available for faculty. Speaking of facilities, an analysis of the condition of the facilities is also underway to identify some short and long-term maintenance costs. And again, having that long-term maintenance projection is an important part to the overall budget of the university. There are other creative revenue generation ideas. Again, if you love them or hate them, but revenue generation is beneficial to all of us. We do not want to have to cut our way out of the deficits. And so one of the revenue generation ideas that was talked about were corporate sponsorships outside of or in addition to athletic sponsorships. And so ideas are being pursued, such as advertising on campus, that again would bring in some revenue, and it sounded like some pretty substantial revenue to the university potentially. There's an approximately $4 million shortfall in the E&G budget due to declining enrollment. So while the overall shortfall is bigger than that, the piece that is due to declining enrollment is about $4 million. Good news is that the state of Georgia revenue is up approximately 16% from this time last year. And so good news for the state, we hope will translate to good news for us. So where are we with the budget process at UWG? This is what was shared with us, that a budget narrative is due to the system office, or was due, excuse me, by the end of November. So that has been submitted. And we were told that what was submitted was a request for the system to backfill the budget deficit, the UWG budget deficit, in order to create a more stable environment for us as the plans are being made to continue to increase in enrollment. So again, basically, we're asking to be backfilled to buy us some time to stabilize. The administrators are really hoping to present as many positive budget metrics to the system office as they can, such as increases in spring student retention and maximization of efficiencies. And again, when they have the opportunity to present to the system, they're hoping that these positive metrics really work in our favor to receive the backfill amount that we're asking for. There should be more information regarding the viability of this request in March or April. And again, the budget committee asked, and I believe will be kept abreast of progress as Vice President Haven knows the progress. And the committee members did ask for the provost to be present at our January meeting, and he has already accepted and has agreed to be there. And we want to discuss how input was solicited for the budget request that was due at the end of November. We have some questions about how collaborative that was and what processes were used. And we also want to discuss the strategy to address the shortfall if the USG does not fully fund the budget request. So that is what we understand. We are again looking forward to meeting with the provost in January and receiving more information as it comes. We also know that the budget committee will need to be very active through the spring and through the summer as well. This is not a committee that can take the summer off. And as we also know from last time letters were sent about non-renewals, that those come in very early fall. And so if for some reason we are not backfilled and that is on the table, we want to be there in the summer when those plans are being made or discussed. So, Dan, I think that's everything.
Yeah, this was very helpful. And people may have questions for you on this. I don't, people are free to if you have a question, you can raise your hand or post something in the chat. I have a couple questions. And again, with these questions, we know you're not the one setting the budget,
Right.
Obviously. And so you may not
Right.
have the answer. And so that's fine if you don't, but if you do, you can share that with us. So a couple questions that I have. So the first one is a clarification on exactly what it means to backfill a budget deficit. For UWG, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean paying off borrowed money? Loans were taken out and those are funding things and expenses in December, January, February, and we're asking the state to pay those off, or is it a matter of picking up the CARES Act funding as soon as the CARES Act funding disappears? What exactly do we mean by backfill?
Dan, that is really a question for John Haven, and I don't want to pretend to be to have any more information that I have, because we were not given specific dollar amounts that will be asked for. We were not given specifics about what they're hoping to backfill again. So I'm sorry, I just don't know.
Okay.
But we will continue to press for those sorts of details.
Okay. And then the second question I have, which again, you may not have the answer to, but I think it'd be helpful if you get the answer if you don't have it, is when exactly will the CARES Act funding end?
Yeah, that again, I'm going to have to defer to Vice President Haven on that.
Okay, that sounds fine. Any other
But
questions people
I will
have?
say, Dan, what I do know is that it's going to need to be, and this is just putting the pieces together, it's going to need to be spent before next academic year, because the plan is to prepay next year's expenses using CARES Act money from this academic year. So my assumption is it goes beyond the December 31st, the end of the calendar year, through our fiscal year to be able to prepay next year.
Did you get a sense of what sort of things are being prepaid? Because obviously there are a lot of things that cannot be prepaid, like salaries and personnel costs are the greatest expense for the university. But did John Haven give any sense as to what the university is hoping to prepay?
No, and as a matter of fact, that was more of a theoretical idea than an actual proposal. And again, that's what the committee has been asking for, is that once there is a proposal, that we would like to be able to have input on those proposals prior to implementation. And we have been told by, again, specifically John Haven, we haven't heard this from other administrators, but from John, that he is willing to bring those sorts of proposals to our committee. So I hope that that remains true and that he's able to do that. I think he is very well intended that he wants to. Again, now whether that comes to pass, we will see.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm glad you've developed a productive relationship with him where he's willing to share these pieces of information with you. I guess ultimately, obviously, it's up to the committee to decide what sort of information they want to press for. But one piece of information that I think would be useful, besides the things that I mentioned, would be the question of exactly what our budget looks like on a month-to-month basis this year. Because on the one hand, Mr. Haven is talking about backfilling the budget deficit, implying that we're running shortfalls this year. At least that's the way that I would read it, absent any other context. And that's why I was asking you to explain what exactly backfilling means. And on the other hand, he's talking about using the CARES money to prepay some things for next year, implying that there's a surplus in CARES money. And of course, given the way that money is designated for specific things, specific categories at the university, and cannot always be transferred to other categories, it's perfectly possible that both things are operating simultaneously. That is, that we have a surplus in the things that CARES Act money can be used for, and a deficit in other areas where CARES money cannot cover. But I'd be interested in knowing that, to see exactly, okay, what is our budget looking like this year? I mean, I know we're in need of more money next year, but then the question is, even this year, what does it look like?
Yeah, that's a fair question, and I will add that to our list of things that we would like to know. Appreciate that, Dan.
We have a question in the chat, which is, how does any of this impact currently empty staff lines, and will we be able to fill them? And it is true. I think everybody here knows, who's been following this, that we've had a net loss of a lot of staff this year, that there's a shortage of staff in many academic departments and in departments across campus outside of academic affairs. So I know the budget committee, to your credit, is looking at the holistic picture, looking at things beyond simply those items that directly impact faculty. And so as you've looked at this question of unfilled staff lines, have you gotten a sense from Mr. Haven as to what the university's plan might be, given the budget, for filling some of these vacancies that have been vacant for a while?
Yeah, we have brought that concern forward to both the provost and Vice President Haven, and we have not been given any information that would indicate whether those staff positions will be filled or not. But that concern has been expressed, in that while they are not specifically faculty positions, they do impact our work and the amount of clerical or managerial type work that we're asked to do, that that impacts our ability to engage in service, scholarship, and teaching.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any other questions, comments, last call on this subject? Seeing none, thank you, Lori. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we have an information item from the chair of the Rules Committee, Angie.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to let you know that the faculty handbook will make its transition starting this month to the policy stat section of the website. So the faculty handbook will be found there starting in December. They're transitioning it a little bit at a time and will be completely online by January.
Okay. Well, thank you for letting us know that. A lot of faculty, I suspect, are not completely familiar with where to find things on policy stat. Could you give us a quick, if you don't mind, could you give us a quick guide to accessing things on policy stat? For people who just have only vaguely heard about policy stat or really don't know very much about it, can you tell us where to click, where to go, and how this works?
Yes, if you just type in UWG policy, and it'll take you to the policy page, and at the bottom is the UWG policy index, and you can go directly off that page. So to find it, just type in UWG policy.
Okay. Shelley, you have your hand up.
So it won't be available on the Academic Affairs website anymore?
No, they're switching everything over to policy stats. So there'll be a single place for everything to be found that's policy related.
And by the way, to Angie's credit, she's worked hard, very hard, even going beyond the call of duty sometimes to try to make sure that all of our documents are accessible to faculty. So it is a top concern for the Rules Committee and for the Faculty Senate as a whole that both the faculty handbook and the policies and procedures document are accessible to faculty, along with everything else that's policy related. So yeah, I think the migration to policy stat was not a decision of the Faculty Senate or the Rules Committee. It represents an initiative that's been taking place for at least, I think, the entire all of last year from the university. But my hope is that things won't, that access won't be lost in the transition, and that people will find their way to this. I know it's not as, it may not be quite as accessible as it was before. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Angie, but my understanding is policy stat does require people to log in with their username and password, correct?
Yes.
So it is behind.
But if you've logged into one UWG login, like for Courston and all that, it automatically accepts you in.
But it is there once you log in, and
Right.
Harry Nelson
And
said that there'll be a
We're
link on the
working
whole
very
page.
hard. The members of the executive committee are working very hard to make sure that we do not lose access to any of the policies and procedures that are currently available to us. Some come and go at random times, but when they disappear, we do ask, where are they and why have they disappeared? So I just want you to know that it is that we're keeping a watch out for what appears and what disappears to make sure that it doesn't disappear for good.
Yes, and I commend you for that. I'm, obviously very supportive of that process. And it's required, of course, by the USG that we have access, faculty have access to the policies created by faculty at the institution. Any other questions about this? If not, thank you, Angie. I appreciate that. And now we'll go to the Teaching, Learning, and Assessment Committee for another information item. Jason.
Thank you. So this information item covers the work that the TLA and especially a TLA subcommittee has been doing regarding the student evaluation instrument. So probably about a year ago, surveys were sent out and data was collected in terms of feedback to help our work in developing proposed revisions for the SEI. And so we've been using that over the summer in a subcommittee led by Rod McCray, and we are beginning to button up proposed revisions to the SEIs. They have not been revised in roughly 10 years, let's say, give or take. And so what we're developing is a proposed revised SEI based upon feedback collected from students and faculty to bring to Senate, but also included with that will be a proposed timeline and process for collecting data, identifying data, collecting data that can be used within a 3 to 5 year cycle for ongoing revisions of the SEIs to prevent like a 10 to 15 year gap like we have previously seen. The goal is to bring that to everyone in the spring.
Okay, very good. I know you've been working on that revision process for quite a while. I know you're working on it last academic year and it's continuing this fall. So we're expecting a great product to come out of this. So I appreciate all that work.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. We've really been doing our due diligence with a lot of information collected through the survey instrument, research and discussion. And so going forward, we're still keeping all of that information and that process going to have a very good proposal to share.
Shelley, I think you may have a question on this.
Yeah, thank you. That's great, and thank you for all your work. I'm just wondering, SEIs now, are they permanently online?
They are. So that was brought to Senate back a while ago, and it was approved. So going forward, that is the main way that SEIs are done now.
I think the concern with a lot of faculty, and I just had a department meeting this morning, is the response rate is much lower online. And there is a debate on whether we can incentivize students to fill out SEIs or not. Does anyone know what the policy is? Because in the past, when I was on APC and we did sort of work on revising the SEIs, I don't think it was as long, but my memory is not so great. So is that we were told we could not incentivize students to.
We can't. So the type of this incentivizing that we cannot do are the ones that give them extra credit or things like that. Some things that faculty have done which are acceptable is if the response rate gets to a certain percentage, there's, like pizza or something, there's been discussion about that. But we're not allowed to incentivize them in terms of that impact on grade or that reward or that monetary incentive. This definitely is a topic that we talk about in TLA. And we've also, when we have the time in our meetings over the past year and this year, we've been really discussing how do we better facilitate that shift in culture for the students, where it's not the captive audience filling out the Scantron sheet, and that they're not fully expecting that, but how do we work to help it shift the culture in the students so that they know that they're online and that there's that's the method to be used. So we talk about different things. I definitely know when the course eval reminders come out, they talk about different possibilities. So it is an ongoing conversation for us. And I know from other institutions, when they shifted to purely online SEIs, they experienced initial low response rates, and they as well had to explore what do they do in terms of changing the culture, not incentivizing, but changing the culture so that students know and expect, all right, I can pull out my phone or I can use my computer and I'll do the SEI. Some faculty still carve out time like they would for the Scantron, where they'll walk out of the room and they'll have all of the students do the SEI on their phone or their computer, like as if the Scantron was handed out. So there's many different things that are being discussed and explored.
Yeah, I
Thank
definitely
you.
appreciate all that info. And we have a couple other comments that are coming through, and then I'll let David Nickel speak. So I guess, first of all, I just want to briefly, as a point of just sort of point of historical record that I think you rightly pointed to, the Faculty Senate did vote on this last spring. And so I would encourage anyone who's interested in the issue to check the minutes on that. And my recollection of the discussion at that time was that the arguments in favor of moving online included a number of things, but in particular, some points that I remember were that the paper forms were a burden for staff, and at a time when a number of units on staff or a number of units on campus are very short staffed, that minimizing the work of the staff seemed to be important to many senators, and then also obviously there's the environmental cost of massive quantities of paper forms, in addition to other concerns about if a significant component of the university is online, how do we compare online evaluations with paper evaluations, and can we have a standard form? I mean, all those things were things that were brought up at that time. But these I think are good points, and so we've got a couple of statements in the chat that I want to read. There's one that says, giving time to students during the last class day to participate in the evaluations like we used for paper evaluations is helping with the response rate for the evaluations. And of course, you spoke to that, Jason. We've got another comment saying Georgia State doesn't allow students to see their final grades and go solar their BandWeb until you complete the course evaluation. And maybe that's something for the TLA committee to look into. I don't know if that's even possible at UWG, but that would certainly increase the response rate considerably.
We've definitely hit that point and talked about it. So I'm sure it'll come up for us again.
And something from Rod McCrae, who of course has devoted quite a bit of attention to this. Rosemary's suggestion aligns with a well-supported best practice. It's even better when doing so at the beginning of the class session. There's a comment also saying with SEI being online now, most of the responses are from disgruntled students. So, and I'm sure experience varies from faculty member to faculty member as to what exactly you're likely to get. But I do think, you know, a number of us obviously have dealt with lower response rates, and it is a point of continued conversation. David, I want to give the floor to you, and then we'll go back to Shelley.
Yeah, actually, I just lowered my hand. I was just going to comment on what Emily said, that at Georgia State, students don't see their grades until they either fill out an evaluation or acknowledge that they do not want to fill out one. I don't understand why we couldn't do that if Georgia State is able to do that. It sounds like Jason has already looked at that, but I am curious why that isn't an option.
Jason?
Well, Rebecca just shared some information. Rebecca Galt's on the committee as well. And we have discussed it. And so the admin hasn't so far been supportive of doing that here at UWG, but Rebecca definitely and other committee members will acknowledge that that strategy is very effective in upping the response rates for the online evaluations.
Yeah, and just to read the comment from Rebecca, TLA has discussed the potential to hold grades until SEIs are completed. Admin hasn't so far been supportive, but it is highly effective. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so we've got a request to go back to the last agenda item, which I think we can do. So let's make sure that we have completed this agenda item so we don't circle back again between these various unfinished pieces of unfinished business. Anyone else for questions about the SEIs?
There was also a question from Elroy. Can someone cite a policy that prohibits incentivizing?
Okay, I guess I missed that in the chat. Oh yeah, okay, here I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Okay, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, so this is probably for you, Jason. Can someone cite a policy that prohibits incentivizing, meaning, you know, if someone brings in $5 Starbucks gift cards and says, you know, pick one up off as you leave the room if you've done this, you know, what is there a policy that says that's forbidden?
Or extra credit, I think was the
yeah, or maybe that would be less of a bribe.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, on the top of my head, I cannot directly quote a policy, but I definitely want to open that up to the rest of the TLA committee members that have been working on the SEI revisions well before I became a member of the committee, in terms of any knowledge of a direct policy that we have here that is against incentivizing SEIs for extra credit, monetary reward.
Hi, it's Rod here. So what I do recall, I haven't seen the language, but I recall that David Jenks, when he was here, this came up 3 or 4 years ago, and David Jenks had cited that there is language, policy language that prevents attaching completion of the SEI to something that could influence the grade. And so that doesn't seem to be a well-known fact across campus, but I haven't looked it up. I could perhaps try and dig for it, or perhaps even reach out to Dr. Jenks and see if he might recall, but it was a line at that point that came from the interim provost.
Thanks,
okay,
Rod.
yeah. If you find specific information on that, Rod, you're welcome to email it to me. I assume by the time you find it, the meeting will have been over. So you're welcome to email it to me, and if you do, I'll just send it to the entire faculty senate. And so if anyone is in this call and really wants that information and is not a faculty senator, you can easily get that from me or your faculty senator when that arrives. So yeah, that would be useful to know. And there's also a related question to this that I think would be answered by the policy, is would disallowing students from accessing
it's answered.
credit. Yeah, okay. Okay, well, yeah, that would be useful to get that information. Anything else on this before we move back to previous agenda item? Rob, you wanted to talk about the faculty handbook on policy step.
Thank you. Yeah, I've just been trying to process the announcement that the faculty handbook is going to be moved to this policy website, which I haven't really explored before today. But I just looked at the link that Blinn shared, and it brings up a couple questions. First of all, will the entire faculty handbook be uploaded to this page in PDF format so that it's a unitary document, or is it going to be broken up into all of its different component parts? And second of all, in looking at, for example, the policy on appointment and renewals that's on this website, this policy stat website, I see that there was an update in October 2021. I can't remember that going through Faculty Senate, maybe it did, but there's no reference in that policy update on the website to the faculty handbook. And I'm curious about why there's not a reference, because there is a reference for areas like faculty workload, but not in that area of reappointment and renewals. And the UWG handbook has some pretty specific language that differs from USG policy. There's only a reference to USG policy, but our policies go a little bit further, specifically in the case of lecturers, in terms of notification for non-reappointment, and also the involvement of faculty in giving feedback to department chairs on renewals. And so there's no reference to the faculty handbook there. So I'm just wondering, I don't know if anyone has an answer now, but I'm curious to get answers to some of those questions. It sounds like that one of these has already been answered. The entire faculty handbook will be there, but there does seem to be a discrepancy between some of these policies that have been taken out and what's in the handbook itself.
Yeah. Well, so the person who's on this call that may have more of those answers than anyone else is probably Harry Nelson. So Harry, if you wouldn't mind, maybe you can explain a little bit about what will be on policy stat, what is on policy stat, and then beyond that, if I don't know if you have the specific information about the policies that Rob cited, but if so, that would be useful to have that information. Otherwise, maybe those questions could be directed to someone that's not on the call.
Yes, I can provide some of that information. With regard to the information that was not cited, the version of the faculty handbook that we used to upload to policy stat was the one that was revised, I think, as late, or it was revised as of October 12th. So if those revisions came afterwards, we would have to make that update. And the team that's working on that is Tara Pearson and Teresa D'Amelio. So if you can send that information to them, they can make sure that it's up to date. Now, as far as the entirety of the faculty handbook, we set it up to where the whole handbook would be in one place as one document and could be downloaded as a PDF from Policy Stat. So it is available as a PDF. There's only one step that you have to take. Up in the right-hand corner, you have to click printer-friendly version, and it'll download it as a full PDF of, I think it's about 60 to 75 pages. But it'll all be available. And I can't remember if was there another question that I may have missed?
Go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that pretty much covers it, but I'm just wondering why, for example, the policy on appointment and renewal, maybe there's just a really simple explanation for this, why it doesn't reference our policies in the faculty handbook. It just says that the provost will follow the USG policies. I'm referring specifically to, and we don't need to have a drawn out conversation now, but maybe it's just something to think about.
And it may have been something that was missed in the upload. If you'll send it to me, I'll share it with Teresa and with Tara, and sure. We can kind of figure out at least get an answer on that. The biggest question about the entirety of the faculty handbook, they consider that from day one, and they're also going to keep an archive of changes month to month based on the faculty senate votes that would ultimately change the handbook. So they're going to keep up with that going forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that information, Harry. Any other comments, questions on this topic before we move away from it? Well, very good. I think we're probably ready to move on. And so we do not have any old business or new business this month, as far as I know. So I think we're ready to move to announcements. I'm aware of 3 announcements. One appears on the agenda, 2 were submitted just slightly after the agenda went out, which is fine. We'll get to those in just a second. Let's start, though, with the announcement that's on the agenda, the executive secretary nominations. And as you know, if you've read the agenda, in Addendum 5, there is a call for nominations for the position of Executive Secretary of the Faculty Senate of the General Faculty. And the requirement is that the Executive Secretary should be a full-time member of the General Faculty. It's a 3-year term. And Colleen may want to say a little bit more about what this position entails. Obviously, you can't tell us everything about what the position entails. It is a substantial undertaking, to say the least. But perhaps you could briefly tell us a little bit about this announcement.
So yeah, I mean it's a lot of work, but it is schedulable. I'm making up a word. It is very predictable work, so you know when the bursts of time are going to come. So there's a clear pattern that develops in what you need to do and when it needs to be done. So that's actually really helpful when you're trying to manage your time. So if anyone is interested in this or anyone has nominations, please contact me and or Dan. I'm happy to sit down and talk with anyone about what the job entails, everything that I do. I've been keeping records of what I do each month. And I'm happy to sit down and just kind of go over what happens in any given month as far as what I do. Your work will increase, your emails will increase because you are going to get an inordinate number of emails just because you're going to be added to every email group that's out there for Senate. What I do want to add is that even though the job description in the faculty handbook and in the bylaws, they don't state this, I will be around for the year, your first year, if you're interested, or if anyone is interested that's live streaming. I'll be around the first year. So my first year as executive secretary, Angela Nsinga was executive secretary before me. And so her first year as incoming chair of Senate was my first year of serving as executive secretary. So I was really fortunate to have Angela there to train me and be with me every step of the way. Her knowledge and mentorship was invaluable. And so I want to pay that forward because I know I'm doing a good job, but that's a lot of that is because of Angela and everything that she helped me with. She helped me with the first round of elections. She helped me with the agendas. When I had questions, she answered them. So I want to be around your first year as well if you are taking this on. So I'll help you. I'll be serving as executive secretary through the June Senate, but then starting in July and moving in through the first year, I'll be with you every step of the way. But if you want to sit down and talk about it, I'm happy to answer any questions. Just let me know.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Colleen, and even more, of course, as I've said before, I'm very appreciative of your service as executive secretary. The Senate could not function without a very capable executive secretary. So it's extremely important work. Just a quick note on the timeline for this. The executive secretary is elected by the general faculty. Traditionally, we have had those elections at the general faculty meeting, which will take place in April. I do not believe that the bylaws or policies and procedures require the vote to take place in April. So I suppose we could hold it electronically in advance if we needed to, but if we're following tradition, which there's probably good reason to do, we would hold that vote in April. But we would like to get a sense of the candidates, at a minimum, of course, one willing and capable candidate, but possibly a slate of candidates well before then, because we want to make sure that we'll have this person in place ready to begin working in the summer. The bylaws give a lot of allow for a long on-ramp for faculty senate chair, and in most cases, not in my case, but in most cases, the faculty senate chair will have a full year of mentoring. That doesn't take place with the executive secretary, as Colleen said, though she'll be happy to provide some of that as much as possible. But this is why we're trying to issue the call for nominations now in December, several months before April, because we're trying to develop a leadership team for this next year. Leadership of committees, as you've seen each meeting, multiple committees have usually announced that they have a chair-elect lined up to take over the committee, over the leadership of the committee during this upcoming year. We, of course, have a faculty senate chair-elect, a very capable one, and Jeff Reber. And the missing piece that we are looking for right now is the executive secretary. And so well before April, we would like to get a sense that we'll definitely have someone ready to step into that role if needed, either multiple candidates or a single capable candidate who could do that. So give consideration to this, please. It is a lot of work, but it is extremely important and valuable work. I think, unless there are any questions on that, I think we're probably ready for the next announcement, which comes to us from Mike Sinke from ARCOB. Mike?
Thank you, everyone. I come today to give you some sad news. The Department of Economics is sad to announce that Dr. James Murphy, an associate professor of economics in our department, passed away at his home on November 20th over Thanksgiving break. He'll be missed by his wonderful fiancée, Natalie, and his parents and friends. James was a trusted colleague. He was a valued friend. He was loved by students. He believed in UWG and he loved the academy. Professionally, he was well published. He published strongly in microeconomics. He furthered our understanding of the relationships between preferences and demand, particularly experimentally. And to this point, he was working on an affordable learning grant at the time of his death for Principles of Micro. So James worked at UWG since 2006. He taught Principles of Micro, Intermediate Micro, Environmental Economics, and Managerial Economics in our department. He was teaching 3 sections of Principles this semester. He was the Honors College Professor of the Year in 2012, and he was slated to teach Honors Principles next semester. James can be found on campus, often at the Starbucks or the campus center or in town at the Corner Cafe. And he's a great friend. He'll be sorely missed. He was only 58. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Really appreciate your willingness to honor a departed colleague in this way. And several comments from the chat expressing good memories of James or condolences, and we appreciate that. Well, the next note is a happier one, and we received a thank you note from Faye McIntyre. Most of you will probably recall that last month the Senate voted a resolution of gratitude toward Faye McIntyre for her long service as Dean of ARCOB. And so I will just quickly read this note for the benefit of anyone who's maybe calling in and doesn't have access to the text here. So she writes, to each member of the UWG Faculty Senate, I say thank you for the resolution passed at the November 12th meeting. Special thanks to Dr. David Nickel for making the initial statement and to Dr. Farouk Khan for proposing a formal resolution. Your acknowledgement of my contributions to a new home for the Richards College of Business is a prime example of the collaborative and supportive culture that has made UWG a place where faculty and staff, in addition to students, can grow and develop to their fullest potential. My sincere hope is that each of us can maintain this spirit as we move into the holiday season and beyond. Best regards, Faye S. McIntyre. So that was very kind of you to write this note to the Faculty Senate. We certainly appreciate your service. Anything else that needs to be announced before we adjourn the meeting?
I have some questions, Dan, and they're short, and maybe they can be for the next meeting or next semester's meetings. Are the comprehensive analysis of programs being vetted by the UPC and or the GPC as the comprehensive program reviews are? And can we at some point talk about Work West and what a mess that site is and how difficult it is to find taxi on there at some point, and maybe check with ITS about when they're going to get that sort of set up correctly if we're supposed to use it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks. Yeah. So I appreciate you bringing concerns to our attention. In regard to the first question, my sense is no, but I can certainly have a conversation with UPC and GPC chairs to see what might be feasible, if anything. In regard to the second question, and we could certainly ask in a Q&A with the administration on this, or we could ask one of the committees, maybe FITC, to look into this, and that's perhaps something that could be on the agenda for next year. So thank you. Anything else?
Thank you.
And Mike Siggy just said, if anyone should wish to attend a celebration of life for James, please let me know. I will share the details when we know. So feel free to contact Mike if you'd like to follow up with that. Seeing nothing further, thank you. I know this is a very busy time of the semester for nearly all of us. And so I wish you all the best in this final week of the semester. And of course, wish you a wonderful holiday season. Look forward to seeing everyone again in the new year. Thanks.